record too, but okay, it's recording.
All right.
Is it recording my voice as well?
It
Who
should be.
knows? If it doesn't
It
work,
should be.
then he doesn't get to watch it. Okay, let's go back to the basics.
All right. Just so everyone understands what's happening here. This square. Can you see my mouse cursor moving,
Yeah,
Nitty?
yeah,
Okay. The square I have drawn here represents the absolute scan area of the aircraft. This is the aircraft. What we're doing is we're looking at the aircraft from behind the aircraft as if it were in level flight. So if this were real, we'd be behind the aircraft looking up its engine nozzles, basically. Those are the wings. That's the fuselage. So what we're doing is looking from behind the aircraft to the front of the aircraft, so everyone understands the positioning. The purpose of this is for you to understand exactly what happens with the radar and what the settings do.
right.
So the question was brought up is what are the difference between the 1 bar, 2 bar, 4 bar, and 6 bar scans? And we'll cover that first. We're going to assume here that um, the elevation is set to neutral, which means there is no bias in the antenna's elevation up or down. We will cover elevation bias a little bit later. For now, everything I'm going to tell you until I say differently is going to assume that the elevation is set to no plus or minus bias. So when you when you set a 1 bar scan, you are telling it to just sweep back and forth without changing the way the antenna is pointing at all in whatever section of pi that you've designated. The other control that you have in the radar is in the bottom, Nitty, you've seen it, 20, 40,
Yep,
60, and you can set it all the way up to 140, right?
right.
What you're doing is you're telling it, the radar, what horizontal ranges to respect. So you're telling it where to stop this way when you set that setting. Okay.
Yep. And that's very useful if you know where exactly the bearing they're at. You don't want to.
Right. If you're doing a 20 degree scan, this is what you're doing. If you were doing a 20-degree 1 bar scan,
It's that little box right there, isn't it? Yeah. Fuck.
that's all you're scanning, right?
Right.
So let me explain how the bars work. So for now, we're going to assume that everyone's doing a 140-degree scan. So it's going to be the whole box that we're seeing here. If you do a 1 bar scan, the section that the radar can cover is roughly about that big. Because what happens is the radar's dish is literally swinging back and forth the way my mouse cursor is right now. What a 1 bar scan means is it does not change its elevation at all, and it simply goes back and forth without changing any elevation. That's literally what a 1 bar scan is. However, when you tell it to do a 2 bar scan, it starts higher and moves this way, and then it goes down, and then it moves this way. So what that means is that box that I originally drew,
Yeah. Just got a little bit wider
the first
vertically.
the first scan does
Not
this,
wider. It got taller
right? And then the second scan covers that.
because it goes down and then scans from right to left.
Right. It, it,
Covers the
it
bottom
scans this
there.
way, drops down, and then scans that way.
So you're getting
That's
a
what a two
little bit of elevation in what's the opposite of elevation?
azimuth is what you're talking
Azimuth is
about.
such a weird word.
You're getting a
Azimuth.
lot of azimuth because you're doing the 140-degree scan. You're getting a little bit of elevation, right?
All right.
So then what happens after it does that is it goes back up top and it does the same thing. So it's literally doing what's called a raster scan. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2,
Oh, okay.
3, 4, 1. That's what a 2 bar scan does. So you get that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I do now.
When you do a 4 bar scan, it's going to do it 4 times. So it actually moves up to here and goes 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right. So I guess the problem with that would be how accurate the scans are because.
It's a refresh rate problem. So let's say your contact, let's say there's a dude there, the way you're looking, right?
Hmm.
Well, if your radar is doing this, after it gets to that point, it never sees him ever again,
Yeah, and he drops off your radar.
and he drops off your
So
radar.
if for me and Bullseye's problem, when Bullseye's like, oh, he just dropped off my radar, it's because the radar literally went down to the next bar and is no longer picking up that contact.
It's literally not pointing at him anymore. Like
Right.
the dish is literally not pointing at him anymore.
And
That's
I
why you can't
didn't
see him.
know that, and I'm sure a couple guys probably didn't know that. That's yeah, that's helpful for sure.
So, and then a 6 bar is the same thing. Now the 6 bar will cover almost the whole box here.
But take forever to do it, right?
It takes forever to do it, especially if you're on 140 degrees. So the refresh rate for any individual target that's like in just one sector is something like you only paint it once every 8 or 10 seconds. So if it moves
Mm-hmm.
around, or it's in an aspect where it doesn't, the radar can't pick it up in that one scan, it will drop off, and you'll not be able to hold the contact. You definitely won't be able to launch any weapons at it. It'll come up occasionally and then disappear. So how do you fix that? Well, okay, so you need to be able to look in the direction where the bogeys are, and you need to have a higher refresh rate. So you can do one of two things. If you're in RWS mode, you just set the parameters for where the radar looks, right? So let's say you set 60 degrees and a 2 bar scan. This is a great compromise because the each scan, each bar is very short. So it's boom, 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 and then it goes back up. Boom, 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 boom,
Yeah,
boom,
really
back
fast,
up.
and it does
Boom,
it
boom,
really
boom, boom, boom.
fast. Like
Right.
probably, yeah.
But you're only covering that square in the middle, the square that I'm moving my mouse in, right?
Okay.
If I instead move it out to 80 and do a 2 bar scan, still a pretty good compromise. Boom, 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 boom. You see how quick that is?
Yeah.
So it's a matter of volume, right? You're covering a volume of space. So each time you double one of the distances, it's 4 times as much surface area that you need to cover. It's a square function.
And you can
So
keep
that
it
so
on, so you can increase the degrees and keep it on a 2 bar scan.
you can. So if you want to do 140 and you know what altitude they're at, you do 140, you keep it on a 2 bar scan, and that's going to be boom, 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 boom. It's that fast. You'll probably keep them tracked.
So if
So
we're
go ahead.
so if we're on a heading of true north or 00 or whatever,
Right.
and you get a call, bra, whatever, 00, 100 miles away, not 100 miles away. We'll say 20 miles away, but he's at an altitude of 30,000 feet, and you're at an altitude of 25,000 feet.
That's almost co-altitude. At that distance, even a 1 bar scan is going to pick them up.
Okay.
What you're worried about is people at 10 miles who are 30,000 feet above or below you. Okay. That gets really hard because the angles are so much worse. So this is where we get into the elevation switch. You need to map your elevation switch to something that you can get to easily while you're flying the jet. Because when you change that elevation switch, when you put the elevation up, you're literally telling the bars to go up here. So if I put the elevation all the way up, it's scanning up here. It's doing a 2 bar scan. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But it's looking up here. So if I know the bogey's above me, I set it to a higher elevation. And now you can do a much smaller bar, but you're pointing at the specific part of sky you want to point at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's range while scan mode. If you want to get a little more advanced, if you turn it to track while scan, which is what TWS is, you set it to like a 6 bar scan. And what that does is it does a 6 bar scan, but it will only do it in a 20-degree arc. But you literally use your TDC to move around where you want that 20-degree arc, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've seen that thing move around with your TDC before. I moved it around to scan for targets.
So what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I want to do a really big, like if you don't know exactly where they are vertically, you put it in 6 bars and then you just move it around till you find them. And then you get that high refresh rate because it's literally going boom, 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 boom,
Right,
like that.
6 bar. So why wouldn't we have it in 2 bar at this moment? Because it only pick up the middle of our square.
No, you put it in. You don't put it in 2 bar. The whole point of TWS is to give you the ability. If you have a magic call or you know where they are because you've seen them visually or somebody tells you or whatever, if you have a really good idea where that guy is, TWS is great because you don't have to pay attention to your elevation of your antenna so much and micromanage it. You can just put it in 6 bar and just move it around wherever it needs. Also, they don't get a single target track notification. It's just a normal
Yeah,
radar.
right.
So you just move it around like that to where you need it. Now, the downside of this, you're only scanning 10 degrees either side of that bar. So you're really only scanning wherever the bar is. That's your scan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's like that, right?
Yeah,
Do you get it?
yeah,
So if there's an aircraft over here or an aircraft over here, you're not going to see them.
right. But you can see the radar bars bounce back and forth, so it's pretty self-explanatory at that point.
Right. So the big difference in between TWS and RWS for setting things up, when you set the bars in TWS, it automatically narrows the azimuth. Like you can't run it in 140 degrees and 6 bars in TWS. It'll narrow it down to 20 degrees when you have it in 6 bars. Do you understand?
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers it. So just to be clear, when you have when you have the RWS, or is it RWS, the one with the 2 radar lines that you control?
That's TWS.
That's
That's
TWS.
TW.
Okay, so on
Yeah.
TWS, and it's on 6 bar and it's scanning that high area. What happens if you put it on 2 bar? It just scans in the middle.
No, yes, it's the same thing. It'll be the middle of whatever the elevation range you did, but it'll be wider. Like
Okay.
so you'd use that if you had a pretty good idea
So if I knew
what
that he
altitude they
was
were at.
right, if
Yeah.
I knew where he was at, I could put it on a 2 bar scan and it will give me a better lock on that target.
Yeah, because it's going to refresh much higher. Correct.
Okay. All right.
Does that help some?
Yeah, but you have a smaller picture, like a smaller window to look through, right? When you use two
Right.
bar.
This is all a matter of like it's a trade-off. There's a trade-off you're making, and you're choosing to make a trade-off. Um, I generally, when I'm flying around, before things get real, I'm flying around in 80 degrees and 6 bars in RWS. That's just general trying to keep a picture of the area, right?
Okay. Yeah, I usually run 80 degrees, like you said, in the general area, but I never knew what the bars did, so I'd literally like if I know they're in an area and I'm picking it up, I'm literally clicking on the bars until I see like a dot pop up. Sometimes it just pops up. Sometimes I leave it alone. I don't touch it. I put my nose on target and hope for the best. But yeah, this should help out a bunch.
Okay. I mean, as you use it, you're probably going to come up with more questions. And I'm happy to do another little mini class. And if you want to share this with whoever, please do.
Yeah, if anybody's even gonna watch it, but I'll try.
Well, whatever. You have it for your own reference too. If you forget something, it's all good. I hope that helped.
Yeah, it helped out a bunch, bro.